Good morning. It's Minister Deb before the throne, and I am passionate about Bible study. What I said in my first video that I made a couple days ago is that I really enjoy what I call Jesus gems. God and I sit down every morning to read the Bible together, and whatever captures my attention, that's what I figure out. I research it maybe, I find more information in the Bible about it, whatever it might be, and I write it down in my journal. Today, I'm going to talk about using history to study the Bible. So if we go to the first, we're going to go to John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. We're going to need some history here to go along with what we are looking at today. This is Jesus's first miracle. And if I just say, Jesus was at a wedding and they ran out of wine and they needed more wine, so Jesus took some water and turned it into wine. Period. That's the end of the miracle. But I'm saying, no, not quite so. Slow down and let's read this, and we will talk about not only the history of it, but how it's more than just Jesus turned water into wine. Many things had to go into it for him to be able to turn this water into wine. So starting at verse 1. On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited up to the wedding with his disciples. All right, so here they are. They went to a wedding. Now, a wedding is not the same then as what we see today. At that time, the wedding celebration lasted for a week. 1 week. So the father of the bride was responsible for all food and drink and entertainment that went on at the wedding. So he was responsible for 1 week's worth of entertainment. And generally the people in the village were invited. So you had special people you invited, and then other people you may or may not know, but they came to the wedding. They stayed until everybody went home. They went home and went to sleep. They came back the next day. They celebrated some more, and so on and so on. All right, so verse 3. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." So we find out, let's talk a little bit about wine. Wine at that time was a very important drink. Sometimes you think, man, they drink a lot of wine in the Bible. Man, they're always drinking wine. Are they getting drunk all the time? Maybe, but no, that is not the main purpose of wine. So wine was fermented. Wine is fermented. That means it is turned into alcohol, right? What kind of bacteria can live in alcohol? None. There's no bacteria that lives in alcohol. So alcohol, or in this case wine, was far, far safer to drink than water that you got from the stream, water that you got from a well, water that you got from, say, a big puddle. I don't know. So it was it was safer to drink wine at that time than it was to drink the water. So wine was very important. Wine was also very important for celebrations. Obviously, for the obvious reason, people want to get drunk, but people were just as drunk then as they are now. So that was not the main purpose of wine. All right, so verse 5. His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." So here's Jesus's mom going, "Hey, this is my son. Tell him what to do. He's going to tell you what to do." Why in the world were the servants listen to Jesus or Jesus's mother, especially at that time? Because this is what? Jesus's first miracle. That means he's not ever done this before. He's not ever done a miracle. And of course, no one has ever seen one because he hasn't done any. But whoever these servants were, Jesus's mom said, "Listen to my son and do whatever he tells you." Verse 6. Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. All right, so a stone jar. A stone jar was literally a giant rock, in this case, because it had to hold 20 or 30 gallons of water, was giant. So they would carve out the inside of this rock until they got it to the size that they wanted, until they got it to the smoothness that it needed to be. It was a beautiful thing for the most part. But these stone jars were for the Jewish rites of purification. This is very important information. The Jewish rite of purification, there were many laws about being unclean. So if you go back to especially Leviticus in the Bible, you're going to see lots of laws about being unclean and how to get clean. You're dirty because you're just dirty. You're dirty because you have blood. You're dirty because you touched certain insects. You're dirty because you touched a dead body. You're dirty for this reason. You're dirty for that reason. And so you needed the water, or you needed the water to be able to get clean. So this water was special. All right. And these jars held 20 or 30 gallons of water. Imagine how heavy this stone jar was. All right. So Jesus, this is verse 7. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." All right. So think about this. You have these stone jars, 6 of them, and they all held 20 or 30 gallons of water. And he said, "Go fill them up." All right. How much do these stone jars weigh? I got no idea, but they must weigh a lot. I do, however, know how much this water would weigh. So if you had, if you had 30 gallons of water, water weighs just under 8 pounds per gallon. 8 times 30, 240 pounds of water. Or the 20-gallon one would be 160 pounds of water. And not only did you have to lift the water, you had to lift the stone jar. How did they fill these up? How long did this take? Where did they go to get this water? Lots of questions here. And what did the servants do? They said, "Oh, okay." Why? Why would they go fill this up on the word of this man who they don't really know? Why? I personally think that's a big deal. This is part of the miracle. So they had to go fill these stone jars that were super heavy by themselves and then put all this water in there. All right. So they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, this is verse 8, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast, we'll stop there. So he said, "All right, take some of this water and go give it to the master to drink." What? Why? Why would these servants do that? They're taking these jars that were used for the purification rites. They were taking this water and giving it to the master to drink. All right, verse 9. When the master of the feast tasted the water now become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants knew who had drawn the water, the master of the feast called to the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." All right, so let's go back to verse 10. Still verse 9. Though they took the water to the master, and he drank this water. This water that was from the jars for purification. And then it says in parentheses, a parentheses is a side note, something for you to consider before you continue reading. There's important information here. That's what parentheses mean. In case you don't know, here's some extra information. Though the water had now become wine, and the master didn't know where this water came from, but the servants knew. The servants took this water that was used for purification and gave it to the master to drink. No, and no. This should never, ever happen. No one should ever drink that water. No one should ever take that water, put it to their lips, and drink it, because it has been used for purification. It has been used, it has been prayed over, and it is now pure. And this water was meant to clean usually your feet, especially at a celebration like this. You're going to have your feet cleaned every time you come into a place. That's part of the purification ritual. And they're giving this water, which is either not clean because it hasn't been prayed over, or it is clean and it is considered sacred and no one should drink it. Either way, in parentheses, though the servants who had drawn the water knew where that water had come from, they could be in some serious trouble because they served this water to the master. They could be fired. They could be put in jail. There's many things that could happen to these servants because they've done something that is considered illegal. But they took that water to the master of the ceremony. He drank it, and it was the best wine. Now, I thought this was funny. Usually you pour out the best wine in the beginning when people aren't drunk yet, and they can actually taste the wine and know that it tastes good. And then you bring the not so good wine later in the celebration when everybody's been drunk or they're hungover or what have you. I just think that's funny. But it's in the Bible. And if it's in the Bible, that means it's important. And then verse 11. This, the first of his signs, Jesus did in Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So here we are with Jesus. He's at a wedding. He turned water into wine. That's not the whole story. Read the whole story. Look at the history of that time. Look at what happened at a wedding. Know about the purification jars. Know about these different things that are going on in just this story, and it brings the story more to life. So this is Minister Deb, and I'm going to be talking more about, 1, Jesus gems that I talked about in the first video, and 2, the history that you need to know about sometimes to understand what is truly going on in the Bible. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you subscribe, and I hope that this brings you some true understanding of what is going on when we read the Bible. Take your time, read, and research. Thank you for listening.